sometimes you have to build your business twice, and the second time is harder because the market has changed, old strategies no longer work, and you are rebuilding with the weight of everything you've already been through. My guest today did exactly that. She had just hit her stride as a new consultant, strong pipeline, first deal closed, real momentum, when a cancer diagnosis stopped everything, not slowed it down, stopped it. A year of surgeries, chemo, and radiation. And when she came out the other side, she came back to a market that had completely shifted underneath her. What she learned about resilience, about niching to your own experience, about why generic LinkedIn outreach is failing right now and what actually works instead, that is what we're digging into today. My name is AJ Riedel. This is Thriving Through, the podcast where each week I have real conversations with self-employed consultants about what it really takes to build a profitable, sustainable, and fulfilling consulting practice. My guest today is Joanna Murray, franchise consultant at Quantum Franchise Group. Joanna helps corporate professionals, mostly women at the VP level and above, leave the corporate world and find a business that actually fits their life. She's lived the journey she now guides others through, and today she is sharing what that journey has really looked like. Let's dive right in. Joanna Murray, welcome to Thriving Through.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I like to start out with a question that relates to the title of this podcast. This podcast is called Thriving Through. So, my first question is, what does thriving mean to you?
Well, it used to mean something different than it means to me today, because I went through a cancer diagnosis in 2024. And excuse me, I went through a couple of surgeries and then still had to go through concurrent chemo and radiation last summer. So thriving to me now means being healthy and living um, my life to the fullest extent that I can. And just, it's more of a health term to me now than it used to be. But that's really what thriving means to me, doing, getting up every day, being grateful and doing the best that I can on that
I,
any given day, doing the best that I can.
I love that. And we'll talk more about your journey through
Yeah,
cancer and
yeah,
recovery. But it really puts it in perspective, having gone through something like that, to what
yeah.
thriving really means.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's a term that obviously is used widely in the cancer community. So it's definitely, it takes on a different meaning when you go through what I've been through.
Absolutely. And you truly know the difference between thriving and surviving from a physical standpoint.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell me, what was your path to becoming a self-employed consultant?
Yeah, so I worked in corporate America for a very long time. I graduated from college and went straight into the corporate world at 22. And I did my MBA while working full time in a corporate environment. And I was there until about 4 years ago. Um, and I just got tired of it. I was fed up with the politics. I was fed up with the bureaucracy. And I just didn't feel like it was aligned with me at all. Where I was just didn't feel like, um, it didn't feel like a good fit in terms of how I was living my life and authenticity. I didn't feel like I was my authentic self. And if I tried to be, I was showing my true self to somebody who had the power to fire me. So I didn't love that. And I started to think about my exit strategy. I think a lot of things had kind of fed into that. I had been in So I worked in commercial real estate and specifically industrial real estate. So as you can imagine, it was very male dominated. I was often the only woman in the room, which was fine. You know, I liked what I was doing, but I didn't really love the culture. Um, and there were a few things that kind of led to me leaving. One was COVID and the pandemic. I was on planes all the time prior to that. So when the pandemic happened and we were grounded, I was home. I got pets again. I was spending more time at home, spending more time in the yard, in the neighborhood. I spent more time at the beach and I really loved it. And I kind of made the decision that I wanted to be home more often and on the road less often.
Mhm.
And then when I did go back into the office, I had some conversations with senior management that opened my eyes to just how misaligned we were. I think politics really came to the forefront during the pandemic, and it was very clear to me that my position and their position was not the same. And I was kind of being a yes woman, like shaking my head up and down, even though I really didn't agree, because I knew that they could fire me.
Right.
So it was at that time that a light bulb went off, and I said, you know, I think I need to start thinking about my exit strategy. And I started to put my plan in place. So it was also at the beginning of COVID that I was approached by someone during a virtual party for an MLM. And they asked me if I had ever thought about doing that before. It's absolutely not. I hadn't. But here I was at home. I was watching way too much Netflix. I was bored. So I said, you know what? Sure, why not? I'll run Facebook parties. So I had that on the side. I was making some income on the side. I was building a little team. So it was kind of like an easy way for me to think about leaving corporate. Um, so it kind of the stars aligned for me at that time.
And when you decided to really go for it, you decided that you didn't keep on with try to building that work with the MLM. What did you decide to do?
Well, I kept it going and I left my corporate job doing that, knowing that it wasn't my final step. It was the bridge to get me to my final step. So I did that just to have some income coming in. And then once I left my corporate job and I was just doing the MLM, then I could start to think about what was my next move. And I ended up finding this franchise business, which is what I do now. So I am a franchise consultant and I help people do what I did. So it's so rewarding. I get to help other corporate professionals, usually executives, vice presidents, and above, leave the corporate world to go find something that's their own, in a way that's a little bit less risky and a little bit less scary because the foundation is already there. It's franchising. So I help them find the right fit. I have an inventory of about 400, a little over 400 different brands that I work with. So I work with people, I help them find what is a good fit for them, what's a good cultural fit, a good financial fit, what helps them reach their goals, um, both financial, uh, lifestyle goals. And I help them to get through the entire process with the franchise from the introduction all the way to when they're awarded their territory and they open up shop. And it's very, very rewarding to watch people find that joy of leaving corporate and getting to be, you know, on their own and do things the way that they want to be doing them, just like I got to do.
Right. Yes. Now you were 6 months into the business and doing pretty well. You had a
Oh,
couple
yeah.
clients, right? And then you
Yeah.
hit a major
Yes.
hiccup, a major
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
Tell us about that challenge, because I mean, that's a really, really big challenge that most consultants don't hit in their first couple years. But
Yeah. So I had gone through the training, which is about a couple of months, and had come out of training strong. I had a couple of really good leads. My pipeline was strong. I closed a deal about 4 months in, which is right on target. I was feeling really good. Had, like I said, a good strong pipeline and was feeling good leading into that 6 month mark. And it was just about right at that point when I got my cancer diagnosis. So the whole world kind of changed at that point for me. Um, I didn't right away have the treatments, but for anybody out there who's been through this, and I think it's touched everybody, the stats are staggering. I think it's 40% of Americans have had cancer. So pretty much everybody either has had it or knows someone who has. So, um, the diagnosis itself really stops you in your tracks and you lose sleep and you're trying to figure out has it spread and you know you're trying to get appointments to get your scans and just figure it all out and it's all consuming. So even though my treatments didn't start right away, my business kind of halted right away. And that lasted for almost, it was pretty much a year, where I was working, but minimally. I was keeping, I was keeping just enough of a toe in the water to keep things going and keep some interest, continue to keep some of my pipeline moving, but I didn't do any deals in the really wasn't working full time or anything even
Yeah.
remotely close to full time for a good year.
Well, and even if you were working, you didn't have the bandwidth.
No.
A lot of your energy was having to go to all of the stuff you had to do for the
Yeah.
cancer.
Yeah, there were a lot of appointments. There's a lot of emotional energy that goes into it. Um, so many appointments. It's crazy how many appointments there are between blood work and, you have radiation oncology and medical oncology and surgeons. And they were trying to decide for me if they were going to do surgery or if I was going to have chemo and radiation. And opted to try surgery. Thought that I was good. I had a couple of months where I thought I was good and I got back into a working routine and then found out that I was not okay, had another surgery, didn't get clean margins, and then had to get in preparation for the concurrent chemo and radiation. So then there was a whole stretch of time where it was the mapping for the radiation, and I had to get my port, and there was just a lot of different appointments, and it's very overwhelming, and it's something that until you live through it, you can't even imagine how much time it takes to get through all of the appointments. It's it's very overwhelming
Yeah. And
and
then
time
just,
consuming.
yes, yes. And then going through radiation and chemo. I mean,
Oh yeah.
at the same time, I mean, the
Yeah.
chemo knocks you out, the radiation, just the sheer drudge
Yeah.
of having to do it every day. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah, well, for me, the radiation was the worst part. That's not true for all cancers. They actually told me that out of all the different types of cancers, the treatment for mine is the worst. So,
Oh,
so
great. That's lovely.
they told me they were going to torture me, and they did.
And they did.
They did, yeah. So, um, really, radiation, the burns were horrific. But most of all, what it does is it zaps all your energy. Your body is working so hard to heal from the burns that it's taking up all of your energy. So while you're spending, your body's energy is put towards healing, you're sleeping all day long.
Yes.
They told me to walk every day if I could, and it was a struggle to get around the block, which was
Hmm.
not my norm. Prior to that,
Right.
that was not my norm.
Sorry. I just had something really urgent that there we go. Okay,
Oh, no
done.
problem at all. I'll take the opportunity to have a little sip of water.
So I want to talk about, so now you're on the other side. You've gone
I
through all that
am.
hell, all
I
that
got through
torture.
hell. I got to the other side. I got a clean scan a couple of months ago. So now it's just, building my business back up again.
So how is that process going? I mean, you did it once and now you're having to do it again. How
Yeah.
how do you approach it the second time around? Because you're
Yeah.
essentially it is a second time around.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I had barely gotten off the ground when I got grounded. Um, and here I am doing it again. And I actually just went through a training with my association where they're telling us how everything has changed and what used to work doesn't work anymore. So I spent a lot of time spinning wheels trying to do what worked for me the first time around and is not working anymore. The good news is that they taught us what does work. And so I just have to shift gears. I think the biggest thing is being able to pivot. And I think that's true no matter what business you're in. If you own your own business, you have to be able to pivot. Things don't always go as planned. We all know that. Anybody who's lived longer than a child, any adult in the world knows that things don't always go our way. And if you can pivot and go with the flow and learn how to change your ways when the environment changes around you,
Mhm.
that's how you are going to find success. So, um,
So I'm curious, what were the pivots or what your the training said what was working doesn't work now, and this is what you have to do instead. Can you give me some specifics?
Sure, yeah, of course. So it's really interesting. It's all in the lead generation. And I think before there were a lot fewer people who were doing what I do. So it was more of a unique role. And when franchise consultants reached out to people, people were a little bit more surprised by it. Like, oh, I've never heard of this before. And yes, I'm open to hearing about it. You could reach out to them with a very generic message. And now, if I'm reaching out to people on LinkedIn with a generic message, they're getting 15 of those generic messages a week. And they are it's a dime a dozen, and they're just ignore, ignore, ignore.
Mhm.
So we are not having any success trying to reach out to people with any kind of generic mass messaging. Really have to look at the individual and try and find a way in that's uh, something you have in common or something about them that makes you think that they would be a good candidate. Um, the thing that's interesting is that there are so many people who really do want our service. There are so many people leaving corporate. There are people who've been laid off and they don't have a choice. They have been forced to leave corporate. And at the same time, they've been given a severance package and they have capital to put into a business. Many of them want this. They want this service. They might not even know that it exists. So there's a disconnect in those of us who provide the service and those of them who need the service and how we find each other. So it's really just how we connect and finding the right people and being human. And I think so many people now are using AI to a fault where messaging sounds inhuman. And people
Mhm.
see through it. So, if you're sending messages out and they just don't really sound personalized at all, it just doesn't work anymore. Um, and I think everybody was at some point guilty of doing that. It was kind of a message everybody, and the people who want your service will respond. And now they're just getting so many messages that it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, and that spidey sense goes up the minute you look at something in your inbox and it sounds generic. It's
Mhm.
like, oh, they're trying to sell me something.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, boom,
Yeah.
move on.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
So it takes a little bit more time to make it truly personal, but I think when you do that, you get a better connection with people. You come off more genuine, which I mean, I am genuinely trying to help people, but if my messaging isn't right, especially people who don't know me, they don't know that I really want to help them. Um, it can come off sounding disingenuous, and that's
Hmm.
something that I obviously don't want. So the goal is to connect with the right people, people who want the service, whether they know it or not. Some of them don't even realize it. And once you connect with them, then, oh, yeah, I'm open to hearing about it. And then over time, it becomes something that really makes sense for them. And it's not always people who are ready to leave corporate. They might want to keep their corporate job and do a semi-absentee model that they can transition out of corporate. That's really common. So, sometimes people aren't even thinking about it. So it's just really capturing the people who are open to thinking about what's next for them. And maybe they have the pain points that I had, they're not aligned and um they want something that is a little bit more of their own and they can design it themselves and have a little more time freedom and a little more. I like to say I have a lot more joy in my life, and I want that for other people. And I mean it.
Hmm.
I
So,
I just my life is so much more joyful since I left the 9 to 5.
so it strikes me that the person you're looking for may have been laid off, they have a severance package, or they're in corporate saying, is this all there is? I really want
Yeah.
to do something else. That's not something you can search for on LinkedIn. There's there in Sales Navigator, there's no
That's right.
filtering capability for people who are unhappy with,
Yeah.
or looking to get out of corporate at the, so how do you find the people on LinkedIn, or do you try to find
Yeah.
people on
Well,
LinkedIn?
so that is the most common place for us to be looking for people. Because it's people who are often leaders, they have management experience, they would make good franchisees, they'd make good business owners. Um, there are some signals that you can see, someone who's maybe jumped jobs a couple times in the last few years, they're not happy, they're looking for the right thing. Um, what other signals are there? Sometimes people will post that they'll actually post, I'm looking for a new opportunity. Is this all there is? Um, things like that. You can use Boolean terms in Sales Navigator. You can't do it in regular LinkedIn, but in Sales Navigator you can.
Okay.
Um, I like to try and find people who are more like me. I typically tend to work best with women. The deals that I have closed, all but one have been with women. Um, so, I'm looking mostly for women who are VPs and above, kind of in a similar situation that I was in. I feel like we relate very well. I end up having a really good rapport with them and I'm able to really understand where they're coming from and understand what their goals are and what their hesitancies are. Um, so it helps me to be able to walk them through the whole process because it is a process. You don't just say I want to buy a business and go out and buy the business. You have to go through all the steps that the franchisor has for you, and really, it's an interview process, basically.
You have in defining your niche, you have done something that is really smart, that makes it easier to relate to and message that person. You are your ideal client is you a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and it's really much easier to message or to say something to them that resonates when you are speaking to you, you know,
Yeah.
and when people define a niche and they've never had any experience in it, they have never uh, experienced themselves. It makes it so much harder to build a business because, you know, in today's world and the messaging, what you say is critical
Yeah.
because you only have that couple seconds in a LinkedIn post or in a DM. And if it doesn't immediately get them to say, wow, I think she kind of understands.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
So that's my goal. I I genuinely want to help people who are in the same situation that I was in. I know how hard it can be to be every day, go to a place where you just don't feel that you're aligned with your values. And I genuinely want to help people who are feeling stuck.
mm-hmm,
Um, you're successful on paper, but you're making good money, you're successful on paper, you've done all the things that you're supposed to do. Your parents are proud of you. And yet there's something missing. And so I want to help those people. And I really do know how they feel because I was there. So that's kind of the conversation. And I do think it makes it easier to have that conversation because I was there. I get it. I know where they are. I've lived it.
right. So I want to switch gears.
Sure.
Is your consulting practice, I mean, you've been working on it again pretty heavily for 6 months?
Yeah, just about.
Okay. So is it where you thought it would be after 6 months or where you expected it to be?
Ah, that's a great question. It is probably where one would expect it to be. I'm a high achiever, so I would love for it to be a little further along, but um given all these changes and given that I had a lot of false starts, I think it's probably exactly where you would expect it to be. I do have a good pipeline. I have a couple of people who are pretty far along in the process. Our lead, our lead time is about 3 to 4 months. So, you know, 6 months in, it's really 5. It's really been about 5 that I've been working again full time. So yeah, I haven't sold it. I've sold one small deal, but I have a couple that are lined up. So, I mean, yes, it's about where it should be. It's about where
Okay.
it should be. I would like for
Now,
it to be more robust, but that's me being hard on myself.
now looking ahead, where do
Yeah.
you see your business in 3 to 5 years?
Uh, um, well, before my diagnosis, I'm part of a team. I am an agent on a team under a broker. And he had elevated me to be a senior agent, and I was supposed to be building out my own team who I would be mentoring and, getting a little piece of the pie and um of what they did because I would be mentoring them and helping them with their deals. So that never came to fruition because I had this year of unexpected change. So I would really love to see that happen. Build out a team in Massachusetts, which is my state, um, and have maybe start with 5. I would say in the next year, have about 5 people on a team who I can mentoring is really where my passion lies. That is where my true passion lies. That has always been true for me. I always say that mentoring, coaching, and training people. I have a certificate in life coaching. And I love to mentor. I love to help people learn new processes. So I think building a team and mentoring 5 people who can then maybe some of them are fantastic and bring on their own people. I see that for part of where my future with this business goes. And I definitely see a lot of people who I have helped to become business owners, and the impact is really widespread. When you help people become business owners, then they're hiring people in the community. Um, I'm focused mostly in Massachusetts now, although I am able to help people throughout the US. I'm kind of moving towards more of a local um, because I think it's nice to be able to meet people, see them in person. So I see myself building a local team, working with local people, building out my reputation here in, Massachusetts, maybe New England, um, and just kind of being the franchise expert in this area.
So being a big fish in a smaller pond.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What do you think are the biggest challenges you're going to face in getting there?
Um, hmm, that's a good question. Um, well, I think the challenge in finding people who want to do what I do is the same challenge in finding people who want to buy a franchise. Because really what I'm doing is almost like owning a franchise. You're, running a business that's a model that someone else has already figured out, and you're investing in it. So it's really finding those people and that connection. And it's the same thing that we already talked about. Really, like the people are out there, but how do you connect with them? LinkedIn, it's not the best place to find these people, but there is no place that you can just go. There isn't an Indeed for people who want to be business owners. There isn't, that doesn't exist. So that's probably the biggest challenge, connecting with the right people. So I'm expanding my network. I'm doing more in-person networking, letting people know what I'm doing. I'm doing podcasts like yours, to get the word out that this is what I'm doing. And, I think when people know what you're doing, then you're more likely to meet the right people who are looking for the service that you're providing. I do pay referral fees, so that's something that I'm getting out there. So I'm going to local networking events and letting people know that. I'm doing virtual networking online with people outside of my immediate area. But that's really the biggest hurdle. I think, as I said before, there are a lot of people who want this service, and I think there are a lot of people who would love to do what I do. It's just a difficult thing to find them.
Yeah, because there's so much noise.
Hmm.
It's really
Yep,
hard to break through. Yes.
exactly. Exactly.
Well, as we start to wrap up, I have a couple, I call them my rapid fire closing questions.
Sure.
What's one book, podcast, or resource that's been invaluable to your consulting practice?
Ah, book, podcast, or resource. Um, I read so many personal development books. Let me see, what would I say? I think Atomic Habits is at the top of my list. Atomic Habits, I go back to that one frequently. I just took a quick peek at my bookshelf.
What is one thing that comes to mind from Atomic Habits that really stands out right now without looking back at the book?
Um, it's, I mean, it's so, oh gosh, I can't come up with the word. It's just, it makes so much sense, right? That if you make something a habit, that it will pay dividends. So it's difficult. It's difficult to make a new habit. But when you make a new habit, it pays you in dividends. So it's really just, showing up for yourself and making the small things that are important, make them a habit and do them every day. And don't don't make excuses and don't stop doing it. Do it every day. And it makes a big difference. It truly does.
Yeah, I've heard great things about that book. It's on
Yeah,
my reading
it
list.
it's a phenomenal book. I might not be doing it justice by pulling that one thing out, but it's a phenomenal book.
Wonderful. And this is the last and most important question.
Sure.
If listeners want to connect with you to find out more about what you do,
Yep.
where do they find you? What's the best place? How can they connect?
They can find me at Franchise with Joanna, which is Joanna, franchisewithjoanna.com, or Joanna at quantumfranchisegroup.com is my email. And I'm
Okay,
on LinkedIn as Joanna Murray, and I am with Quantum Franchise Group.
wonderful. And for those of you listening, the links will be in the show notes. So, Joanna, it has been wonderful talking to you. Thank you for your inspiring story.
Thank
And
you.
for those of you listening, until next time, keep thriving through. That was Joanna Murray, franchise consultant at Quantum Franchise Group. What a conversation. Two things I want to leave you with from this conversation. First, your ideal client might already be you. If you can niche to the person you used to be, the exact problem you've already solved, the pain you understand from the inside out, your outreach becomes easier. Your conversations become more authentic, and your clients feel the difference. Second, generic messaging is out. If your LinkedIn DMs sound like everyone else's, they are going to be ignored like everyone else's. Be specific, be human, take the extra 5 minutes to make it personal. It works. You can connect with Joanna at franchisewithjoanna.com or find her on LinkedIn as Joanna Murray at Quantum Franchise Group. The links are in the show notes. If this episode resonated with you, share it with another self-employed consultant who needs to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, do it now so you never miss an episode. If you listen on one of the main podcast channels, follow me so you don't miss another episode. Until next time, keep thriving through.